In this section, we'll look at the production process, namely which tasks must be handled and in which order, so that we can produce high-quality content quickly, easily and efficiently. The string of pearls on this slide illustrates very well that content production is a multi-part and a fully differentiated process, half of which is made up of preparation for the actual content production. On the following slides, we look in more detail at the individual steps. Content production starts with researching sources. From these sources, we gather inspiration, identifying the themes relevant to our target group, and lastly, looking into what our competition is doing. Whether we are journalists or content marketers or a company blog, we curate our sources and prepare the raw material needed for the production of our own original content. Curating content means the following to us: identifying the relevant source content, reflecting on source content, bringing source content into our target group's context, taking our own position, communicating, making an argument, and lastly, publishing. Very few thoughts in this world are unique or really new. To be inspired, to adapt, to put things together in new ways and thus create something new belongs to every creative process. The less effort we spend producing our own unique content, the more time we have to invest in the development of a marketing strategy. Our most important task is not to copy, but to provide value for our target group and our readers through contextualization, plus our own perspective and the individualization of the content for our particular target group. There are two types of sources. On the one hand, those that make the content available themselves, such as the news section of an industry magazine, which is regularly updated. On the other hand, there are sources that aggregate updates from multiple publishers and then quantify this information, such as Google Trends. In the case of the second type of source, there is an additional step in the curation process. The merged data must be unpacked. Source type 1 includes social media accounts, websites, blogs, online magazines, and many more. This type of source is organized using tools that can read publishers' RSS feeds. Among these are Feedly, Hootsuite or Panda. When publishers don't make RSS feeds available, we can't do anything beyond bookmarking the source and directly researching the content. Source type 2 includes platforms that make processed user data available. For instance, Google Trends, Google Correlate or Facebook Audience Insights. Tools that use and then recycle this user data for specific platforms, for instance Searchmetrics, SEMrush or Social Bakers, and tools that evaluate this data thematically and across various platforms, for instance Talkwalker, Ubermetrics or BuzzSumo. It should be noted that data processing tools always depend on the goodwill of the platforms that provide them with their databases. No one wants to remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal and the subsequent lockout from Facebook. Sources that we use in the production process must fulfill various requirements. On the one hand, we want to achieve our business goals, and on the other hand, the final content product should be produced economically. We reach the first goal by using content that meets the information needs of our target audience, as well as our own needs in terms of the message we want to send. We reach the second goal by answering the following questions. Are there themes included that are relevant to us? Is the source unique? Is the information reliable? Is the information new or hot? Is the source regularly updated? Are their articles long enough? Are they speaking to the same target audience? Can we quickly and easily evaluate the content? A pool of sources should be periodically cleaned up, updated and expanded. A newsfeed that is no longer regularly updated is easy to identify. This is not true of a change in editorial orientation. Therefore, it is necessary to relate source material to our business goals. The next step in building a production infrastructure is creating a briefing for the authors. The briefing is the link between the persona from our content marketing strategy and the production template, which determines the structural specification for each individual content element. Since increasing numbers of team members or external freelancers are involved in the production of content, for instance authors, editors and translators, we need clear guidelines which apply to all of them. This helps to ensure that we adhere to our brand standards and that all published content is consistent and cut from the same cloth. In addition, the briefing ensures that gaps and weaknesses in the brand guidelines are identified, that the production process is made more economical, and that the new team members are more quickly and effectively integrated. This last element ensures a higher level of operational stability. The briefing helps us to define the following pragmatically: who our target audience is, how we speak to them, and how we want to convert them. To this end, we need a condensed description of the persona, our own brand guidelines or brand style guide, as well as the definition of our marketing goals. With these raw materials, we develop a template for the author. At this point, we should also mention that the project briefing should not be confused with the content briefing. The actual content elements are included in the editorial calendar, titles and descriptions, and defined by way of outlines. Our project briefing determines the content briefing. There is no set structure for the creation of a briefing, since they are oriented to the requirements of the creator. The following elements should be included at the very least: the title. What is the title of the project being produced? The lead. Who is the editorial lead? The goal. What goals do we want to achieve with this project? The target group description in the form of a persona. Who do we want to reach with the project being produced? The messaging. What message do we fundamentally want to convey? The form of address and tone. How do we address our target group? Deliverables and formats. What content will be produced and in what forms? Is a content element only complete, for example, when it includes copy or meta descriptions and at least 2 high-resolution images? What visual language are we using? For instance, motifs, colors, visual editing, or even the use of emojis. Formatting. Which elements are in bold or italics? How are hyperlinks displayed, etc.? Is the integration of third-party platforms such as YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram permitted? We often find yet more elements related to the creation of a product, a campaign, a seasonal time frame, or an overarching goal. So that the author can focus completely on the production of content, we use the production template to define what concrete requirements must be fulfilled before the content element is ready for publication. The briefing transformed into a template is what we use in every production process, is created in our production system, and is where our work takes place. Alongside set fields for the important strategic information in the briefing, for instance persona, funnel stage, conversion goal, publication platform, etc., we define other set fields for title, meta description, URI, minimum word count, search terms to use in order to optimize the text, the number of subheadings, the source URIs for images, information about sources, etc. We create an individual production template for each publication format, whether it's a blog post, a social media post, a press release, a email, or a YouTube video. Once again, we return to the pearl necklace of the production process. Up to now, we have identified the pool of sources, researched these sources, and created the briefing and the production template. In so doing, we have completed the part of preparatory process that only needs to be done once or at very long intervals. The following tasks are performed regularly in shorter intervals, depending on the frequency of publication. Depending on publication frequency, we investigate the topics in our source pool on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, looking for new content to be used in our content formats. Various parameters suggest content that is appropriate for curating. The content must be relevant for our business goals, it must pique the interest of our target group, and we must be able to demonstrate an overall relevance using our analytic tools. For instance, increasing search volume in search engines, trending topics on Twitter, or popular topics on Reddit. A content element, regardless of whether it's a text, a presentation, or a video, follows a linear narrative structure in most cases. These structures are traditional, learned, and function the most smoothly in communication. The conversion of users to customers in the conversion funnel is also a linear process. Therefore, we can regard each content element as a mini conversion funnel. The introduction gets the attention of the recipient, awareness. The middle section regards the problem from various perspectives, consideration, and in the final part we offer a recommendation and guide the user to a decision. This decision manifests itself as a click on the call to action, filling out a registration form, or downloading an offer for information. The outline gives the author the playbook for the conversion of the user. In a few words, the outline provides instructions for what to communicate in each section in order to convert the user. The author's task is to take the instructions in the outline and create brand-appropriate content that matches the briefing. As a result of their work, the author delivers the content to fill in the empty fields in the production template. Since the production template includes structuring information like meta descriptions or image captions along with the main content, an author's qualifications must include an understanding of how publication platforms function. The author is not only a creator, but also a marketing strategist and a craftsman of technical communications. Each content element that is produced is checked by a second person working in editorial. In the event that the text is a high intellectual level, we split up the review of content, review phase, and the formal review, copy editing, proofreading. In the review, marketers and topic area experts check the facts, the logic of argumentation, the consistency with other related content, and the adherence to the strategic and content-related requirements of the briefing. If there are gaps in the information, the experts can make recommendations for filling these in. During proofreading, we check the formal quality of the content. While we examine and improve the content during the review, during proofreading we correct what is objectively wrong, commonly spelling, grammatical and punctuation errors. In content marketing, the proofreader has yet another task. He or she checks the objective criteria of completeness for structural elements, such as text length, structure and format, hyperlinks, metadata, and all other formal requirements set out in the briefing. During the revision of a content element, the author interprets the feedback of the editor, updates the content and provides a new version. The author must also communicate with the editor, since not every problem identified by the editor has only one solution. Only through communication can we avoid costly extra rounds of corrections. After all the content has been created, it needs to be inserted into the respective content management system. The content manager ensures that multimedia content, text, images, videos, graphics, reaches its final form. Furthermore, it links the content to the inventory of related, already published content in order to bring the user deeper into what we offer. He or she tags the content, adds platform-specific metadata, and integrates the content into automated process chains, such as email campaigns. Quality assurance is the last step before the content sees the light of the day. Lastly, we check the URL that will be associated with the content and which the search machine crawlers will be indexing. We also check the formatting, the functionality of hyperlinks, and the consistency of the display. We lastly check for typos that might have occurred during the management process and then, where necessary, allow the content to be released by the client. And then we go live.